This episode is brought to you by Resy and American Express. Resy is a digital platform that connects restaurants to restaurant lovers by elevating dining experiences, providing original industry content, and helping to fill some of the country's most exciting dining rooms. Because restaurants have always been more than just places to eat. The amazing world of restaurants is just a few taps away in the Resy app and at resy.com.
About 30 years, I went on a canoe trip with him up the Hudson River, and he pointed out every place where sewage was coming into the Hudson, and he knew the names of all the fish that were being poisoned, and I was astonished.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. This one has been a long time coming. The one and only Alice Waters joins me in the studio for an amazing conversation. We talk naturally about her legacy at Chez Panisse, the pioneering restaurant in Berkeley, California that opened in 1971 with California farmers front and center. There would be no farm-to-table movement without Alice. We also talk about her work bringing regenerative farming to school kitchens and her new book, A School Lunch Revolution. It was a thrill having Alice in the studio, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Alice Waters, welcome to This Is Taste. Great to see you.
Thank you so much.
We met last weekend, for the first time face-to-face in Los Angeles. We were at a chef conference, and I got to meet you. You gave me a hug. Are you like that with everybody, or should I feel special?
You are special, but I do love to have that close connection. I love to hug people.
It's a wonderful trait. It's a wonderful trait. And before we get to a school lunch revolution and some talk about Chez Panisse, 54 years, it's been open, so much to talk about. You're here in New York. When you visit New York, where do you like to dine out?
Oh, that's very hard to say. I always have been down there in the Village. Yeah. And I know so many people in the restaurant business. And it's always a little hard to know where I'm going to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a political choice to where to go that one time.
Well, it's not so much that. It's kind of a friend's choice. I have really good friends in the restaurant business down there. Yeah. And who do I visit first?
Well, I'm so happy you're here. Before we get to the book, 54 years running a restaurant, that's a long time. I mean, what excites you about showing up for work in the morning at Chez Panisse?
I have to say, I have never tired of showing up to work. I love being there. I mean, it was much harder in the beginning because I was in the kitchen and dining room, and I was always worried about whether people were having a good time and all of that. But I love the unpredictability of it, that you're not sure how the food's going to be. I mean, you're changing lettuce because of the season, but, I just want to stick my hand in and try it.
Yeah. I mean, touching the produce and just seeing what comes in off the trucks every morning. You're still there looking at it.
Oh, I am. But I think that we know everybody who brings us food. And the main person is now Bob Kennard's son, Ross, who just has been the greatest for Chez Panisse because he calls up the chefs in the morning and he says, "Will you take these nettles today?" And of course the cooks say yes. And it's really great because he picks up all the compostable materials from the restaurant and takes them back up and brings us the good stuff.
I've always wanted to ask you this question. You were the first in America to put a farmer's name on a menu. And what was it deep down inside of you that inspired that decision that, there would be no farm to table without Chez Panisse?
Well, there would be no Chippenese without the farmers. And so I felt like they were the main people that should be on the menu,
Yeah.
so that other people could know about them. You know, somebody like Matsumoto, I keep talking about him always because he's the greatest peach farmer. And we only have his peaches that little short period of time in the fall. But he's somebody who really knows how to speak about regenerative organic agriculture and what it means to his farm. And he, is such a good friend. I would pay anything for his peaches.
Yeah. I mean, when you put these farmers and you list these heirloom products on your menu, what's the diner in the early 70s thinking when they enter the restaurant?
Well, I'm sure you've heard the story about Jose Andres. He came to the restaurant, and I brought him a little plate that had the best figs ever on it. And he took a look and he said, "What is this?" Just like, "This is dessert." And then he tasted one. And he's never had anything like that in his life. And that's the experience that I want people to have. And so we talk about those farmers because they're so precious. And their choices of what to grow has gone all over the Bay Area. There's some farmers markets everywhere now.
Absolutely revolutionary that you made this choice, and we are all for the better for it. I appreciate it, Alice.
Well, it didn't come from me. It came from France, because I went to France when I was 19, as you probably know, and I ate food there that completely blew my mind. And I said, I want to live like the French when I got back. And that was the reason I started the restaurant. Is I thought, well, France, I could feel like I was in France.
Yeah.
It was the idea of eating completely seasonally, of knowing the biodiversity of the food at that particular moment in time. And, changing the menus accordingly. And that's what I did when I came back. Wasn't anything that I dreamed up. It's the way people have been eating since the beginning of time.
Yeah. You're very humble, and I think
it's true.
The sentiment is echoed by Michael McCarty, who is doing something similar down in Los Angeles. We've had many conversations with him, and the work you and Michael did in California in the 70s, it's just cannot be understated on the show how important it is.
Well, it's probably, it was very, very important, I know. But it wasn't anything revolutionary in the world.
Yeah.
And people should know that when I say we need to go back there, it's the way people have lived since the beginning of time. Eating what is locally available, eating what the seasons require, knowing your farmer, and it's something beautiful.
Last Japanese question before we get to the book, and what you just said about eating seasonally obviously makes sense in the school system. I have to ask you about the alumni. We've had many alumni on the show, and give me a story of maybe an alumni who we don't know as well. Somebody who's doing something interesting in the world.
Always the person that comes back to me is Steve Sullivan, because he was a busboy at Chez Benny's when we first opened downstairs. And he heard me complaining about bread. And he said, if I make some French bread for you, will you let me do it for the restaurant? Yeah. And he was a student at Cal Berkeley. And he had a stove in his accommodations.
Yeah.
And so he learned about making baguettes from reading about France. And one day he brought some down. And I said, okay, you can make bread.
This is your job now.
This is my guy. And he drove us crazy because he was spraying in ovens and coming at 7 o'clock on the 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, could you please find some place you can make the bread? And because you're driving us crazy. So he opened Acme Bread Company in Berkeley and changed bread in this country. But he studied what a baguette was in these books. He went to France, ultimately, and he started really making loaves that people stood in line for, just the way they do in France.
Love that
And
story.
I'm so excited. The other day, I just went to see him because he's opening up a bigger bakery across the street.
Oh, okay.
And it is going to be so beautiful.
I cannot wait to visit Acme, the new
With an open
one.
kitchen and little places where you can stand and watch in the kitchen.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And, I mean, he's always been that way of sharing all his baking with bakers in San Francisco, New York, all around the country. He doesn't feel proprietary ever. And I love that about him.
I love that about the baking world, how it's open source in many ways. And I
Yes,
think you shouldn't be proprietary for that
No,
technique and for that
no.
baking tradition.
Or for anything, I'm not proprietary.
Fair.
Just
For-
come on in the kitchen.
It should be open
If
source.
you can do it better than I can, I'll come and eat at your restaurant.
Onto the book, the idea of tying together these two critical aspects tied to our future world, regenerative agriculture and school lunches. Alice, it makes too much sense. It makes too much sense. First question is why isn't it as common in school systems as it should be?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. One is that we have people that are trying to make money on the distribution of food in schools. And they're importing food, and they're buying food that is not necessarily good for you at all. And I'm talking about buying food for schools the way that they've done it around the world since the beginning of time. Again, it's the way we all ate. What is ripe right now where I'm living? Okay, we'll take all of that for the schools, and we'll buy it straight from the farmer, so the farmer gets all the money. That was what changed everything for me at the restaurant. Is everybody wanted to sell to us because we paid them the real cost. They didn't have to pay the distributor to take the food to the restaurant. And I loved it because of the possibility of sending them back with food scraps for their gardens. And, Bob Kennard was our first regenerative farmer, which I didn't know what that meant.
It wasn't a term.
No, it wasn't a term.
It wasn't a term.
Way back then, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But Bob knew that there was something, the way he described regenerative to me was it's bringing the bad things up there in the sky, putting them down in the ground where they belong.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Carbon neutral agriculture
right.
is truly a flashpoint today.
Yes.
Today's episode of This Is Taste is brought to you by Grow Therapy. Have you ever tried to Google therapist near me and ended up more anxious than when you started? Now, I did this once and landed on some guy in Brooklyn Heights who wanted to charge me $900 for a session. Now, I get that brownstone living is expensive. And those weekly visits to Lavara, those can add up. But come on, man. $900? Grow Therapy makes it way less overwhelming and way more affordable. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits your needs. They connect you with thousands of independent, licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. It's that easy. And you can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your own time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0, depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/taste today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/taste. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan. This episode is brought to you by Grow Therapy. Have you ever tried to Google therapist near me? Just the act of typing those words in a browser can be so stressful on its own. I once went on a hunt for a therapist and found myself with a dozen tabs open with LinkedIn profiles and Instagram accounts of people I just didn't want to know. Grow Therapy makes it way less overwhelming and way more affordable. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits your needs. They connect you with thousands of independent, licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. It's that easy. And you can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your own time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0, depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/taste today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/taste. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan. I want to ask you about the economics of it all. I've had Jamie Oliver in here a couple times, and I've asked him a similar question. You know, there's a perception that when you buy directly from the farmer, that it's going to be innately more expensive. And the question is how do you get schools to buy into this program and make it cost effective for them? Because we know these middlemen and these distributors are possibly making it work economically for the schools in a way that you can't deny it. But please push back on any of that.
Well, I call this school-supported agriculture because I saw what happened when the farmers market movement began as community-supported agriculture. Now, nobody knew whether that could work either, but there's a farmers market in practically every big town in this country in a very short period of time. I came to that one first in the Union Square.
Yeah.
In Union Square. And I was just so thrilled that all those farmers that I loved, the organic ones, were at the farmers market. And so for that to grow means that there are, and especially in New York, it means that there are people that really want to buy that food at that price, support those people, eat seasonally. And there are restaurants that send their trucks to the farmers market to pick up. But I know there's another way to do it too, is directly to the farm, like when the Conscious Kitchen in Marin County in San Francisco, they decided they wanted to do this, buy all organic local food seasonally. And they made a place for the kids to sit and have lunch in the gymnasium, though it brought in long tables and chairs. And then the first person they asked was Strauss Dairy in Marin. And Judy Schill said, can you bring in big containers so we can pour it in glasses at the table? And so he did. He was so pleased to do that. And I was at one of those tables at the very beginning, and I just thought, I feel like I'm back in grammar school in in the 1950s, and I'm drinking a glass of milk out of a glass. And I was a little afraid I wouldn't be able to drink the whole glass.
Yeah.
But once I tasted it, drank the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. All the kids at the table drank the whole glass of milk. And there's something both about the taste of that milk and about sitting together and eating together.
Yeah, and I think it leads to the way children are and you write about this in the book, and it's smart. They're better eaters than we give them credit for.
Oh.
They're much more discerning diners than we give them credit for. And I think with this idea of buying directly from the farms and preparing dishes that perhaps aren't the industrial variety that are engineered to taste good for kids. You know, there's like obviously a lot of food science that goes into getting food into certain shapes and to have a certain texture that children eat. But you push back on that idea. You think that children, when given fresh produce and grains, whole grains, they will eat the food.
I think, again, it goes right back to what is dead ripe. Right now in California, it's these pears. And we're eating those pears. And I just can't get enough of them. And I'm talking about providing that ripe food for kids in schools. And it's really pretty urgent we do this, not just for the health of the children and the delight, but because of climate change.
Yeah.
And it's imperative that we do something that's globally possible, where there's the economic engine to buy it, where everybody would love it and be educated by that. I mean, you know, when the pears are gone, I say, what's next?
What's next? What's next up? And I think let's zoom out a little bit and talk about how it can be afforded by the schools. And you know, Jamie Oliver's work has really been in close step with the government, and it's a different government, so we can't compare the two. But how do you incentivize these schools to change these programs? Does it need government intervention at the local level or federal level?
It does need government intervention right now, international intervention, because of climate. We have a climate emergency that they say by 2030 we can't do anything about it. And so I feel like the procurement of food in schools globally and supporting the farmers directly. You know, the mayor of Paris did this. She, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, she said, I want to buy all the food for the schools in Paris from regenerative organic farms within 250 miles of Paris. And she's 2/3 of the way to doing that already. So we know that it can happen. And I just know that once we had the reputation and we put that out in the world the way the mayor of Paris is, everybody wants to come to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different scale than Marin County, so that's a positive step. You know, we have 115,000 public schools and private schools in America, and to get to that level of scale. But how do you get this? You know, it doesn't have to be all 115,000 schools. It's not going to be possible. But even 10% at 15,000, how do you get school administrators to buy in? It has to start also at the culinary level, the cooks.
No question. No question. It's so much less difficult to convince the kids and the cooks. It's the administrator that has to take charge. Now, there was a young peach farmer in the Central Valley in California, and she came and spoke at this big event that we had called Climate Food Hope in D.C. before the election. And we wanted to prove that you could buy straight from the farmer and fit into the USDA reimbursement. So that was what that event was about. But this young woman felt like she had so many peaches. She should drive into the city, but it was almost 2 hours away. And she couldn't take that time off. So she went right over to the middle school with a couple boxes of those beautiful peaches. And the principal of the school said, I'll buy all you have, all of them. And so now she gets the real price, and she just drives all of her fruit there.
Yeah.
And that's the reassurance that the farmer needs. And that's what we provided in the restaurant. Even when the farmer said they aren't so good this week, I said, well, if we add this and that, we'll make it taste good. Bring them. And that's what they need to feel, is we're there for you.
I absolutely buy into this idea that at the school level, the cooks working in these kitchens have the ability to take seasonal produce from regenerative farms and make it delicious. And I want to ask you about this idea of talking to the farmers. How do you mitigate that? I know you're one person, you can't do it all, but that's going to be the key as to how does the school cook know from the farmers? How does that discourse happen at scale, even 10% of 150,000?
Well, you can have a tasting almost at the school.
Yeah.
Where you're inviting all the organic peach farmers to come, or walnuts, or whatever. It's an education for the cooks. It's what's happened with me. I didn't know half the things that Bob Kennard was growing, but he just sent them for me to taste. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, I loved them. I loved them more than I imagined. And so I never say no. I always say yes. Bring it down.
Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. I want to talk about a couple of areas of the cookbook of the book, which has a lot of beautiful recipes. And for those at home who have picky eaters or children in the household, this may be resonant, because I think you're crafting these recipes to really work for schools, which I think is an amazing thing. For salad, because I think salad, like green salads, is something that we obviously have a lot of greens available all the time in growing climates, throughout the country. How do you make a salad, Alice, work for a fourth grader who maybe has only had like bottle drench dressing and iceberg?
Knowing how I fed my kid when she was growing up, and she always wanted me to make her lunch for school, and a big portion because her friends wanted to eat it too. But salad, well, first of all, I always eat it with my hands, even when I'm in a fancy restaurant. But dipping is the key. Dipping. So you have the vinaigrette in a little container, and you have all the leaves off the head of lettuce, and you just pick up one, dip it in the vinaigrette, and eat it.
You can do that with bib. You can do that with radicchio. You can do that with,
you can do it with any kind of salad. But you can also do it with green beans, blanched green beans, or you can do it with salad. You can do it with anything.
I love that sentiment. I fully can just envision. I keep thinking about my school in Western Michigan and like thinking about the 90s and 80s and like what I was eating, which was kind of scary, frankly. But like I would have liked to have had a fun dipping moment.
Yes. But you need to make a good vinaigrette.
Yes, you do.
And people, in order to do that, I mean, I'm addicted to kind of the garlic at the base.
Yeah.
And I mash it with my mortar and pestle, and then I add some salt, but I make it a paste.
Yep.
Very smooth paste. And then I let the vinegar sort of cure it for, even a couple of hours. So it tames the garlic, and especially at certain times of the year when it's strong.
Yeah.
And then I add the olive oil to taste. And I think there are, a lot of affordable olive oils right now. I don't want anything bitter. But you can compensate by using a sweeter vinegar. So there's always a way to make that vinaigrette taste really good. Sometimes you want to put in a little mustard.
Yeah, that's my move as well.
Or a little sherry vinegar.
Yeah, my move as well.
Something sweeter.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it just always works with teenagers.
Absolutely. I think soups are an incredible opportunity for schools. You know, you're creating something, you're taking vegetables that maybe even in season they don't look the best, and you can make something that is easily served at scale. How do you think about soups in schools?
I love it. And you can add a little pasta in there.
Of course, yeah.
And I love the pesto myself.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I put that in at the end in a soup. And it's just so, or garlicky. It's that thing at the end that just finishes it off.
Yeah.
Sometimes when there's not basil, there's oregano or some other herb that is really aromatic and can mix with the pounded garlic.
Yeah, if you visit any farmer's market, you're going to have so many herbs available.
I mean, and things like green beans and fennel. We have to think about even broccoli that's just branched. You can dip that in that vinaigrette. Lots of vegetables.
And you think kids will eat this. You know children will eat this. Eat this food.
I know what children like. I mean, both them making choices for themselves. So you could have a table in a cafeteria that had a number of different vegetables on them. So if they didn't like the broccoli, they could try the green bean. And always there is something that they love.
I agree. You see it time and again. You see children will eat vegetables if you have the right preparation. It's texture a lot of times.
Yes. It's about the texture.
Yeah.
They like sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
They love squash. And it's about how you cut it, too. You could leave it long like a boat.
Yeah.
Or you could cut in little pieces. And they love to do that.
Let's circle back on the USDA question. I mean, how does that funding work by your assumption with these farmers? How is there the current administration or future administrations, is there a blanket policy that could be created that allows these farmers to get paid?
Well, I just know that there is from the experience of the Conscious Kitchen out in Marin.
Yeah.
But I'm looking not just in this country. I'm really looking around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to Brazil. I've been to Morocco schools. I've been all over France. I've been in Italy. And I know that this can be affordable. It's knowing what to order.
Yeah.
And knowing how to use it all in a soup if it's not all gone on the platters. I mean, we do that at Shea all the time.
Yeah.
That we're trying to calculate. And we see what people love. And there's cabbage, there's purple cabbage in the winter. But I think, and well, I know for sure in grammar schools this works. But I know that when the kids are a little bit engaged in the preparation, and they could be in schools, that maybe there's a table with one chef at it that's teaching the kids how to slice the peppers or peel the cucumbers. And so they become a little bit of a workforce. At the school in Marin, there were parents that signed up not just to work in the kitchen, but to go to the farmer's market and pick up produce. Mm-hmm. So given that opportunity, I think we're going to see a lot of wonderful food coming into the schools.
I think there just is a lack of imagination in some of these communities and some of these school systems.
And fear of food making people sick. And I'll tell you that I think it's really the food that's not in the farmer's market or straight at the farm that's making people sick. It's what is in the food to preserve it, all of that stuff. And we think it has to do with a farmer bringing a box of corn from his or her farm. And it just makes me so sad that we're this fearful. But I'm hoping that all of the chefs that I know around the world, from Korea and Japan, China, will chime in that food straight from the farms is going to be good for the children.
I think it's really smart to recontextualize this as a global initiative, too, because I think the headwinds are much less in other countries, and they can certainly read your work and follow this policy. Closer to home, you read the RFK Jr. headlines in our government, and I just wonder, Alice, I want to take the opportunity to ask you, I think there's a lot of questions about his vaccine policies, a lot of, doing a lot of bad for our world. But I think directionally speaking, at least, the idea of banning certain additives to food is directionally positive in some ways.
Extremely positive.
So I want to because I know the vaccine stuff is crazy, straight up. But the other stuff is more nuanced. What do you think when you see that from a very controversial person?
Well, about 30 years, I went on a canoe trip with him up the Hudson River. And he pointed out every place where sewage was coming into the Hudson. And he knew the names of all the fish that were being poisoned in the river. And I was astonished by that. And I cannot imagine that someone who had such a love of nature would not help us at this point to really find and support the farmers who take care of the land for our future and our health.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I can't. It may be true, but I can't. And there are an awful lot of other people who know about what's in our food. But he is the only person who has said, a person in government who I have heard say, the food comes from land that is poisonous. No one has ever said that.
Yeah, directionally a net positive for our government to have someone speaking out.
Yes.
And a very, very complex individual,
yes.
especially in our culture today. But I'm happy you shared that anecdote. I mean, I'm hopeful that some of his policies when it comes to food security and food, farms is going to dovetail with your work. Alice, I'm going to ask you, what do you want to be remembered most for? I mean, you've got this restaurant career and this legacy in our restaurant culture. And then you have your policy and your the other, work that you do that is looking more holistically. They're both close to you. I mean, the restaurants have been here longer. What do you want to be remembered most for?
You can't forget that I'm a trained Montessori teacher. I took my training in England in 1968. And so I'm looking at the world through Maria Montessori's eyes. And she said that our senses are the pathways into our minds. We need to be not just tasting food, we need to be smelling it, we need to be looking at it closely, we need to be listening to it.
Yeah.
And it's possible to do that. And we need to be learning this in schools. I just brought this map because seeing is believing. And we started the Edible Schoolyard with these Montessori ideas.
Look at this map.
30 years
For
ago.
our audio-only friends, we've got a map of the United States, and there's literally a flag in every state.
Around the world, there are 7,500 schools.
Wow. Oh, look at that. And then there's very fine print on the back when there's literally, you have to get a magnifying glass. There's thousands of names here.
But
Alice, this is
these are
amazing.
schools that came or heard about the edible schoolyard at Martin Luther King School in Berkeley. And what I did, the principal called me up and he said, I don't know what to do with all these 800 teenage kids. And I hear you know something about gardening, maybe, and Montessori ideas, so maybe you could help me. Well, I went over to the school. And many people have heard this story, but there was a vacant lot full of junk over there.
Mm-hmm.
It was built in 1928 on 17 acres of land. That's
In
how
Berkeley,
we felt.
think about that.
But that's how we felt about education back then.
Yeah.
And it was only for 500 students, and there were 800 now at the school. And so I said, Neil, it's all or nothing with me, as usual. I would like to see this vacant lot with all the junk turned into a garden classroom. And I'd like that big portable building over there that you're not doing anything with turned into a kitchen classroom. And I don't want to be teaching cooking or gardening. I want to teach all of your academic subjects in these very Montessori places where students are touching and tasting and smelling, seeing the beauty of the garden, seeing the food. And let me tell you, right away, after a couple of years, it made such an impression at that middle school. And I was allowed to build to help with the architect to design a cafeteria to feed all of the 800 students sitting down in 2 sessions of an hour. And the principal of the school, again, allowed me to do this. Unfortunately, the cafeteria hasn't been used the way that it was intended, because it takes really the political people in Berkeley to change the contracts with Cisco and allow us to buy directly from the farmer. But that's what is next. And it is so great because the kids will come in and say, why can't the food in the cafeteria taste like it does here in the kitchen classroom? And we have to say they didn't buy it from the farmer. We get it from the farmer.
How do we? I mean, how do we break these contracts?
Well,
how do we break the?
I really decided, because I have this institute that I started 3 years, Alice Waters Institute, that its mission originally was to build a kitchen at Davis at the University of California. And right as we were doing that and getting the money together, I realized we need to go to Washington, D.C. before the election and bring people who could really talk about this idea, which is what we did. And it was a huge success in D.C. at that time at the Smithsonian. So we came back very excited about what we might do with the University of California. And I'm still very excited because whatever they decide will go across the country and around the world.
Yeah.
And so if they decided even at a campus, and of course I'm hoping it's Berkeley, and we have begun negotiations around this, but it could happen at a lot of different campuses.
Yeah.
Again, there are a lot of different temperatures, populations of people, and my fingers are crossed.
Yeah, I hope.
And I'm looking for people both who have money to buy out the contracts, but I know that within the kitchens, and I'm right now part of the University of California at UCLA because I have a restaurant there called Lulu.
Yeah.
And I did it on purpose
Yeah.
to bring the powers that be together.
To get close. You had to
And
get close in a campus
Exactly.
setting.
And we wanted to do all organic, regenerative food. We have many students that are coming in and volunteering.
I mean, thinking about it at the college level is fascinating.
Yes.
And it seems like change can be initiated quicker there.
You're exactly right, because the money is there.
Yeah.
I mean, places like BART have built a new kitchen.
Yeah.
People are talking about it around the country.
Yeah.
And Farm to School is very big in Vermont. And we know about Elliot Coleman growing food in a greenhouse, taking it to a school all winter long.
Yeah.
He does. But there are many, many people that I don't know about. Portland, Oregon is a place that's been experimenting for a long time, and also New Orleans. We started edible schoolyards in places around the country so that we could prove that it would work in any climate, any culture, and big schools, small ones.
Yeah, and different socioeconomic dynamics too. Yeah. I'm so happy we could close with that sentiment, these literal green shoots popping up around the country in these schools. I'm really optimistic after this conversation, because honestly, I didn't know where this would go, because it's dark times.
It is. And it's the wonderful thing that food does to you.
Yeah.
That when you taste it when it's ripe, it takes you away from yourself and what you're worried about.
Alice, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about the discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I'm not sure.
The best fruit.
Masamoto peaches.
Okay, you have to answer this question. The worst vegetable.
A vegetable that is overgrown and not organic and not regenerative and not of the season. I don't want to eat it.
It's the best answer. Best answer we've ever had on the show. I think that's a great way to say it. What is your typical breakfast?
Well, these days, it's funny. I got to start eating eggs, scrambled egg with olive oil.
Yeah, that's the way.
Scrambled in olive oil.
That's the way.
And then I grab a few leaves of lettuce or a little basil, and I put it in an organic tortilla that I just put on the stove for a minute.
Yeah.
And then I put it in, and sometimes
that's
I put a little basil in there too, or some herb from my garden. But I eat it when it's right hot then.
So good. I love that breakfast taco with basil.
I mean, it could be a piece of Steve Sullivan's bread.
Yeah.
His edible schoolyard loaf.
Oh, he's got a loaf going at
He's
Acme?
got a loaf that's whole grain and organic, of course.
The best dessert.
It's absolutely a galette at Chez Panisse.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm crazy about the plum galette, but it's going to change.
It's going to change.
It's going to change
It's beautiful. I've had it.
It used to be a peach, and then it was nectarine, and then it's a plum, and we're getting some figs, and we're having fig galettes, and it'll move on.
It'll move
to the winter ones.
Love to hear your answer for this. A restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead.
Oh, goodness. The Automat.
Yeah.
From the 50s. Because I would go there as a young person and get to choose what I wanted and open the little door.
Yeah.
And you could see the person behind making it. You could even say hello. Mm-hmm. And I loved that connection with the people at work. And of course, at that time, there were no chemicals on the food.
No.
And so food was organic. And I didn't know that was the case when I was a kid, but I always wanted to go to the Natural History Museum in New York and then go with my family to the automat. And I grew up in New Jersey,
Yeah.
so we took the boat across.
Yeah.
And that's what we did for my birthday every year.
Oh, what a great memory. We were just talking about automats on the show with someone, and just kind of wishing that someone could bring them back to New York. It'd be
Well, I love the idea that you see somebody making it, and it could happen now. I mean, a little bit it happens with an open kitchen that people are having, but to just put the food out there to pick up, I think the schools need to teach the restaurants in a way how to feel good about that.
Yeah.
And we have to trust people.
Yeah.
And that is something that we've lost in our computer world, is we don't get a chance to really sense another person in the way that I'm doing it right now with you.
Yeah.
That we're not sharing something really. We're just grabbing something. And I think that connection, I know at Chez Panisse, it was very, very important.
Yeah.
And the health inspector said, no, you can't bring people in the kitchen. But when that door burnt down between the kitchen and the dining room, I never put it up again.
Yeah.
And the health inspectors came by and never noticed that it wasn't there. Maybe they noticed, but they didn't care because the kitchen was clean from their point of view, like they hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And all the ingredients were labeled in the refrigerator very clearly. And we had bright lights, but we didn't have fluorescent lights. Mm-hmm. We had lights that made everybody look good in the kitchen. And the food looked good.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of really bending those rules. Kitchens don't have to be painted white. They have to be a light color. Mm-hmm. So we painted our kitchen a light sort of yellow mustard color. And it is absolutely beautiful in that way. It enhances the food. The white and fluorescent lights destroy it.
And it's understated here, but this is a pioneering moment for your restaurant when you open the kitchen up and you paint the color, inviting color, and you just make the food and the chefs cooking in the back the center stage.
But to have schools designed with that in mind instead of just buying what you buy for schools, that is all stainless and white
industrial,
light. And,
it lacks a little creativity in some ways.
Well, we need, we say at the Edible Schoolyard, and I love this, that Esther Cook was the first director, and she said about the flowers she put on the table, she said, beauty is a language of care.
Yeah.
And so when those flowers are there, the children just say, oh, Esther brought in her flowers for me today. And that's the sense that people get when they have an opportunity to come into our kitchen.
Last one, your favorite sandwich.
Oh, my favorite sandwich. The first thing that came to mind was my kind of first sandwich, grilled cheese.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Alice, how do you do grilled cheese? What's your way?
Well,
what's your method?
I mean, now I don't grill the cheese so much anymore.
Yeah.
But if I did, I'd get some really good one.
Yeah. What's the cheese choice?
I
have to ask you, what cheese are you putting in the grilled cheese? What's the ideal one?
I love goat cheese.
Yes.
I would probably make my grilled cheese sandwich differently. I would put the whole grain edible schoolyard loaf, the slices of bread in my toaster, get them all brown, and then I pour olive oil on it. Yeah. And then I'd spread that goat cheese on it and have a little salad on the side.
That's it. Alice Waters, what an honor. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Oh, it's my pleasure, really.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.